Welcome back to another quick review, and we're back. It's been about 2 months since I made that one big spoiler review on the Red Rising trilogy, and so now I'm back. Took a little bit of a break, read a Stormlight Archive book in the middle, but I had to return. I had to come back, and I've just finished Iron Gold. And I think to start off, what I like to do with these quick reviews is start off with like broad thoughts before I get into the nitty gritty spoilers content. There's not going to be too much in that because rather than the last Red Rising quick review, I did the or spoiler review. I do not have a script for that this time. This is, all off the dome. And even then, using the script didn't really do much for me because I tend to improvise a lot. But yeah, so to start overall, I think this is a weaker book in the Red Rising saga, and I think that's for a variety of reasons. I think it has the same issues that the original book has, and that's just it being tasked to set up the world, and it does something different. With Red Rising, you could definitely see Pierce Brown coming into his own writing wise. You could definitely see that he isn't as refined in his work as he is in later titles such as Golden Sun, Morning Star, and even Iron Gold. And I think the comparison for Red Rising to Iron Gold is dealing with the multiple POVs. I actually really enjoyed the multiple POVs. I thought most of them were really good. Darrow's POV, I think, is a little bit weird for me because on one hand, I really enjoyed lots of it. On the other hand, there are certain points, and I think this kind of goes for all the POVs. There are certain points where I'm like, we don't really need to be doing this right now, or this isn't as interesting as something else, but it's fine. Lyra's POV was great. Seeing this new red character navigating the world that isn't Darrow, that isn't as doesn't have as colorful as a personality as Darrow was a lot of fun. And I think overall, funnily enough, I actually think her POV was the most well-rounded. It's not my favorite. It's the most well-rounded. Ephraim, I think I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Ephraim, whatever. I think his POV ended up being my least favorite. Simply because I think that was the one where, because there's a lot of good stuff in there, especially towards the end or even towards the middle point with everything that happened with Lyria or Laria. Sorry, I can't tell you. I'm gonna pronounce it how I want to. Especially towards the middle point. But I think that's the POV in which I felt like, like I was saying, this stuff isn't as interesting or there isn't as much going on compared to the other POVs. This is the one where I think that shines the most. It's the one where it's like, man, I'm just not that interested in this. And I think everything that Pierce Brown did with the character was a lot of the stuff that he did with the character was actually very interesting. Everything with Holiday and Trig and tying it back to the Rising and how he feels after that. All of that was great. It's just I think it's the one POV where I just wasn't as invested or as interested. I expect that to change going into Dark Age, which I'll talk about that later. Going into Dark Age, but yeah, I wasn't invested. As well as the side characters didn't really hook me. A lot of I think a variety of the POVs, the side characters were added to that. Lyria and having to do with Cadix and her brother and her family. That was all very interesting to me, as well as Mustang and Holiday was a lot of fun. Darrow and the Howlers was great. I'll talk about Lysander in a minute, but I think all the side characters in that POV were great. But this Ephraim's POV, I don't think the side characters kind of did it for me. It doesn't help that, spoiler alert, most of them die, but or are captured, but they don't really do it for me. And lastly, let's talk about Lysander's POV. Um, I hate to say it because I feel like not so much that I could predict where this character's arc is going, but more so I see myself hating Lysander in the future. Lysander's POV in this book ended up being my favorite. Just because I think that it it does a good job as a continuation from the end of Morningstar. And I think that's what a lot. I think that one thing that this book does really really well. Um, both being a story about family, as in a variety of different forms between Darrow and having to essentially abandon his family, the same thing with Severo, Lyria and dealing with and watching her family and going to the end of the earth to protect her nephew. Sorry, I don't know if I said son or brother. It's a nephew. Um, Ephraim and dealing with Trig and Holiday and his trauma regarding that, and Lysander dealing with his family, and which ties in really well with dealing with the aftermath, the effects, how things have changed, how things have gone right and gone wrong, and not just Morningstar, but also Golden Sun. The effects of Golden Sun into come into play really, really well into this in this book, especially in Lysander's POV. I think Lysander's POV does a really good job at showcasing how, despite the fact that he understands that everything that was going wrong, everything that was happening before the Rising was wrong. He clearly gets that that's not how things should be going because of him as a person and his family and Gold's and his ideals that he's been raised upon. You see that clash of him trying to figure out what to do going forward after another spoiler alert, Cassius dies. And that's one of the things that I feel that death feels weird to me because I don't believe that Cassius is dead. I don't think it hits as hard because I firmly don't believe he's dead. If I'm wrong, but I don't believe he's dead. Right? And if he is dead, I think he went out really well. I think it was a really epic scene. But I think it lessens the impact because it's like he technically died off screen, in quotation marks. This is a book off screen. And I just don't know how to feel about that. But yeah, so after Cassius dies, and you can see him having to clash with that anymore, and it's the Ra family that that kind of and everything in the Rim that tells him that forces him to make that decision after finally finding out about everything that Darrow did in Morningstar, to behind their backs. He makes that decision, and ultimately it's a decision for the worse. That clash, it leads him into a darker path, and it's going to be very interesting to see how both him and Darrow clash, going into both Dark Age and Lightbringer. How Darrow's actions and the actions of others have led Lysander down this dark path, and how Darrow's actions and the actions of others have led Darrow down this dark path. And I just think that's going to be so interesting. That's going to be so much fun. But yeah, I've actually gone on a little bit too long, or a little bit longer than I thought I would. I'm very scared to read Dark Age. I'm going to be completely honest. This book has a reputation for being the ending of Golden Sun, but for 700 pages. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But nonetheless, I'm scared, but at the same time, I'm very excited to see what happens. See if it breaks my heart in any way, shape, or form, and to see if Pierce Brown will become any more of my mortal enemy than he already is. But yeah, overall, I would give Iron Gold closer to an 8 or 9 out of 10. Not my favorite Red Rising book by any means. I think it's on par with the original Red Rising book, but still really good. I would still highly recommend it. Thank you for watching. See ya. Bye.